Hi, my name's Kristine, CEO of LMVA Consulting, where we love connecting people. And today we're excited to kick off a new season of lives with people we know that we think you should get to know. Our lives are going to range, whether it's to expand your network and promote events within our community that might be of interest to you. Today, we're excited to bring Gordon Dmytriw, who's been recently semi-retired as he recently retired, but he's actually more in semi-retirement, as Chief Strategy Officer at ThinkShift, an agri-marketing agency in Winnipeg. Prior to his semi-retirement, Gord spent 35 years in sales and marketing. His focus was working with clients to set strategic directions, develop brand strategies, as well as addressing and ensuring their cultures were aligned and able to support. We're excited to connect with him today as we talk a little bit about the work that he does and his upcoming keynote on the 24th for Leadercast Winnipeg 2021. Hi, Gord. Thanks for joining us today.
Great to be here, Kristine. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we're looking forward to our time together. I know it's short, and in conversations with you and I know we can have this much longer, but we're going to limit this to about 20 minutes for everyone's viewing purposes. We want to, just chat a little bit about, the work that you do, provide a little highlight of your keynote for later this month, and also talk a little bit about leadership and culture. And again, we're welcoming everyone who's here participating, viewing us live. During our Q&A, we invite those who are watching with us to ask any questions, and we're going to try and answer them the best that we can. So just to kind of give people a little bit of history, about 6 months ago, Gordon and I connected through a mutual colleague, and since this time, he's provided not only myself, but the team that I work with, sales, marketing strategy, guidance for us, which I think has been really helpful. But, through these conversations, what I really found interesting, and this is what I want to talk a little bit more about, is, that work that you do with leadership and culture over at ThinkShift. And could you tell us a little bit about that work?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. ThinkShift, as an advertising agency that, focuses, a lot on in the ag sector, although, we have clients, across a, broad range of industries. We've been around, for 13, 14 years, or even probably even longer than that. I've been with the organization for 13 years, but, as we've sort of grown and developed, we've always taken the position that, we're brand stewards. What we do as an agency is help our clients preserve, protect, and enhance, their brand and make sure that they represent themselves in the marketplace and how they, deliver value to clients, as professionally and maybe as clearly as possible. And so what does it mean to be a brand steward? We have always taken the position that brands are built from the inside out. You just, and in today's social media environment, you can't say one thing and do another. You'll get called out. So in order to represent yourself authentically in the marketplace, you have to think about building your brand from the inside out. So what does that mean? It means leaders first and foremost have to get intentional about the kind of leadership team they want to be, and what kind of culture that they want to nurture and develop, because at the end of the day, what the promises that the sales and marketing team makes in the marketplace have to be delivered by the employees, by the culture within the organization. So if your brand and your culture are not aligned, you know what? Bad things can happen. So as brand stewards, we get called up by our clients to say, hey, can you help us, develop our leadership team? Can you help us, develop our emerging leaders? Can you help us be more intentional about how we talk about our culture and the stories we tell ourselves about where we're going, about how we're going to get there, about the kind of people that fit into our organization, about the behaviors that, we need to elevate and celebrate around here to really live our brand authentically. And so, just kind of over the course of over a number of years, we've developed, a suite of services within our agency to help clients sort of like look after the big rocks in the inside of their organization versus what a traditional agency might do, representing how the company looks outside of the organization. Bit of a long-winded answer, but yeah. Sorry, you asked.
But I did. And I think that takes us down this interesting path because, there's a couple of things that you said that leaders need to consider, like leaders first and foremost, and what kind of culture. So if someone came to you and said, what is a first step that they should be considering? What should they be thinking about when they're thinking about those leaders first and foremost? What does that mean?
That's, I'm not so sure there's really a first thing that you should think about as an organizational leader. I think as it relates to culture, the fact of the matter is like companies have a culture whether they manage it or not. Mm-hmm. And so we take a position, be intentional about the kind of culture that you want to nurture and develop. And so, what is culture? It's really a collection of behaviors, right? It's the way things are done around here. And so if you look around the organization, you think to yourself as a leader, are we walking past things that we shouldn't be? Are we putting up with behaviors that we really need to get rid of? One of the questions I ask leadership teams when I do cultural assessments is, if you had to perform like a cultural exorcism, like what would you get rid of? Like what would you yank out? Because at the end of the day, leaders have the responsibility to model the behaviors that they want employees to model, and so it really starts with the leadership team, right? And so I guess if I was identify one first step, it would be leaders should undertake a bit of self-reflection on the kind of leader they are, the kind of leader that they want to become, and how they would want to influence the cultures that they lead to behave differently. That would be the first step, self-reflection.
Self-reflection. Well, and I think this is a really interesting time period because we've had, like, companies have established their culture. Now we're moving into this environment and time where, some people are still continuing to work from home. Some people are continuing to go fully back into the office, and some are doing a hybrid model, right? So how does that look for culture when we know that we're going to be taking the time to build cultures within our organizations all over again, and over the last 18 months, we've been creating a different set of culture because we aren't in the office together. Mm-hmm. So how do you, like, what are your thoughts on that?
It's a topic of conversation, like, for everybody, isn't it? It's the fact that we have been forced to, and again, there are a lot of organizations where they don't have the luxury of moving to a distributed workforce.
Yeah.
And I think, we tend to forget about those organizations because they're still going to work every single day. They still have employees taking a bus, they're still working on the shop floor, and right. They are, challenged with all of the rules and regulations around social distancing in a way that really impacts culture. Mm-hmm. but differently than those organizations that have the luxury of moving to a more distributed, workforce. So it really, like I sort of tend to think about like where, like there's a lot of pressure on organizations that have to work in this environment now collectively. How do you maintain collegiality? How do you sort of overcome the, and address the prickliness that, that happens, in these kinds of, pressure or stressed environments? There again, I think there are some principles. I think the organizations that are doing this well have laid a foundation of making it safe to have healthy conflict. Yes. I think first and foremost, make it safe to have like open and honest conversations, and to push back on leadership in a way that is safe. And I think our cultures that do accountability well, right, that hold one another accountable to the, to the things that maintain a safe work environment. Mm-hmm. So I think those principles don't change regardless of whether we're in this environment or not. But I think as you think about the kind of behaviors you want to inculcate in the culture, I think, healthy conflict, mm-hmm. strong accountability, and really, real open and honest transparency are probably three key behaviors that you would see in cultures that are doing it well. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Again, you're asking, I'm telling, right? Or I'm talking. I got lots to say about that. I get so excited about this work because like we're in a sea change. I read something, and I can't remember where it was. I'm gonna get the details wrong, but I think the principle still stands, right? Leaders were asked how long it would take to like move to like a distributed workforce and like make decisions, and mm-hmm. and they said it would take us 24 months, and then bang, they all did it in like 3 weeks, a month. It's just the realization that organizations can move a lot quicker than leadership thought they could is being played out in every industry and every kind of company. And so I think there's a realization that, hey, we can move quicker if we need to, and we can adapt to a more distributed working model, some companies. And then the question becomes, well, how does that impact our culture? Circling back to your original question, is how does culture impact in this, in a mm-hmm. distributed work environment? And it's true, it changes.
It completely does.
It does, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No.
You can imagine, I often think about when I think about culture, I think about two dimensions to a culture. So one is the dimension of solidarity. Like, so how focused are we as a group of people trying to get stuff done on a shared set of goals? And to the extent that as a team we're aligned to the same goals, you've got strong solidarity. The other dimension is sociability. How collegial are we? Do we get together for lunch, as a group, and don't talk work? Do we go to each other's birthday parties, kids' birthday parties and stuff, outside of the work environment? How connected are we socially outside of the work environment? It's a high degree of, sociability. And you can map cultures across these two dimensions. So you can imagine like a Wall Street firm, right, that are hitting their numbers, like I don't know, corporators, hedge fund operators, whatever, right? The high solidarity, they're trying to hit their numbers, but they could care less about their colleagues. Very low sociability. To the extent that they work together, it's because they're hitting the numbers, right?
Agreed.
You can imagine like an academic institution, very high in collegiality, right? They work really well together. They have lunches in the faculty lounge and all that kind of stuff. But in terms of solidarity, they're off doing their own thing. They don't have shared goals. As an academic, one academic is doing their thing, another academic is doing their thing, and they don't really share a lot of goals. So you can imagine these cultures will fall out just thinking about these two dimensions. So now what happens if you have a whole culture with high sociability, because everybody gets together, everybody loves, bang, Now they're in a distributed workforce. The culture has to change. And so leaders have to be very intentional about thinking, how is our culture changing? And what do we need to do to either improve solidarity or or improve sociability? And just because those two dimensions were set to a certain dial pre-distributed workforce, I'm trying to avoid using the C word, that doesn't mean they need to be set to the same level post distributed workforce. They just are going to be set differently.
Mm-hmm. But then it also takes all of those factors, and it goes back to those core areas where you said is, working on that conflict resolution piece. Making sure it's a safe space for not only for your staff and team to discuss and have open conversations about how they are feeling, reacting, and as they build those cultures, and having that transparency and accountability around it. And I think, as people are looking at establishing and working on their cultures going forward, as long as you have that safe space, that it truly is like one of those foundations in making sure that you have a successful culture.
That's true. And I think about we tend, there's the word empowerment always comes up when you have a conversation about culture, and it's it's a word that I think comes with a lot of, for me it's one of these suitcase terms, right? As you open up the suitcase and there's like a lot of sort of other sort of nested ideas within this big idea called empowerment. But I think leaders want to empower their people to do the work and make decisions. But it's hard to let go of control if you're a leader at the best of times, when you're in a work environment, when it's sort of easier just to get a sense of how the team is working together, right? In a distributed work environment, it's a little bit harder to let go of control, and it's a little bit harder to empower people to get their work done in a more distributed environment where you don't see everybody on a regular basis. Nevertheless, I think this distributed workforce just is such a rich source of opportunity to empower employees. And to the extent that leaders trust their people to do the work, and give employees clear direction so that they can do the work, I think there's an opportunity to have a more empowered environment culturally in a distributed workforce than would otherwise be the case if it was in the traditional working environment that they might have had, pre-COVID. So
I agree. Well, and I think if you look at it, in you as an organization or within your team are setting, more of those guidelines, right? Those rules of engagement, or setting, when it matters for us to meet, when we have to have these conversations. These are the timelines that you're held accountable to having these projects done. We're going to meet, X amount of times, but to make all of those interactions more meaningful and purposeful, really, to advance your goals forward.
And I think, I've talked to clients that are saying we just got to get back to work. Like, we got to get back to the way things were, because we work better when somebody can turn around and ask a question to the person next to them and solve a customer problem or something, and that the distributed model is not working for them, right? And other clients just say, I may never see my employees again. They're just we're hitting on all 8 cylinders, and I think we're going to give up our office space because we just don't need it anymore, right? And then there's every scenario in between. And then going back to building a brand from the inside out, what's important for leaders is it's to be intentional and use this new reality as an opportunity to really think through what it means to collaborate, what it means to be part of a tribe of people that are coming together to get things done on behalf of their clients or customers. And this environment is a great opportunity for that kind of reflection. And I think if it wasn't obvious that that was important to do that kind of reflection pre-pandemic, it's certainly obvious now. And a lot of leadership teams I'm talking to are saying, yeah, like let's start thinking differently about things.
Well, thinking differently and trying new methods and techniques.
Yeah, absolutely
it's
right.
a good time to slowly experiment.
Forced on us.
Yeah. And everyone's going through it. They're not alone in this process, and every situation has its own unique variables that they need to consider as part of it.
That's exactly
great.
True.
Well, I definitely can see your excitement and passion when you talk about this topic. I know that we've gotten into some of these conversations before, and it definitely kind of gives you that fresh perspective. And I'm hoping that those that are listening to us, have some, good takeaways and things to think about, and be able to have that time to self-reflect as they are moving back into whatever work environment that they are going forward in. Now, how does this tie in? Just take a quick couple of seconds to really just lead into. We have you joining us on September 24th, doing a keynote for our event where it is focused on leaders and leadership, and we have you delivering a keynote. You want to give us a quick highlight on that?
Sure, I'd love to. So again, it seems like everything goes back to the pandemic, right? But it just seems to me that there's been so much, there's been so many reports, reading the media, newspapers and whatnot, of people acting or not acting with integrity, right? Like you've got the restaurant server, or you've got the grocery clerk that are like enforcing mask mandates to a belligerent customer, and actually stepping up and doing the right thing because that's the mandate. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum, they're acting with integrity, and you get the other end of the spectrum, you've got politicians that are sitting on a patio with a whole group of people, not social distancing, or going on trips, right? So in the do as I say, not as I do mode, and acting without integrity. And I think the opportunity to act with integrity, I think it's on display here in a way that perhaps it once wasn't. And then when I work with clients to help them think about the story that they tell themselves about themselves, what I call an organizational narrative. Often we get into conversations about, the values as an organization that we want to that we want to elevate and celebrate. And integrity is invariably one of those values, right? I got a lot to say about whether that should be a value in a value set for an organizational narrative or not. But that aside, integrity by itself, it's one of those things that we know it when we see it, but like, what is it really? And so what I want to present is a model for thinking about integrity, and what are the specific behaviors that you can identify, and that you can again elevate and celebrate in order to create a culture that acts with integrity. And I'm going to share a model and share the behaviors within that model, so leaders can bring that model back into their organization and say, like, we're gonna share this. We're going to talk about it. We're going to bring it up front. It's going to be language that we can use to help one another just live with integrity and lead with integrity. And I think it's going to be, it's one of these. I have one of my favorite parables. Anybody who knows me says, Gordon, not this parable again, right? But and it's not mine. I first heard it from David Foster Wallace. He used it in his commencement address at Kenyon College, and it was back in sometime in the 90s. And you just Google David Foster Wallace, and you'll come up with this. it's great. So what he tells a story about these two young fish swimming through the water, and an older fish swimming the other way says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" And the two young fish swim, and the one says to the other, "Water? What's water?" And so his point is like, hey, young grads, Kenyon College, I'm not the old wiser fish telling you the meaning of water, the meaning of light. His point was often the most important truths are so obvious that we overlook them. And that doesn't make them any less important just because we're not paying attention to them. We're swimming in water. And I think integrity is one of those things. It's very important, very obvious, but because it's so obvious, we don't define what it means to act with integrity crisply enough so people can walk it out and identify opportunities for improvement and opportunities to celebrate. So what I hope my talk will put a little meat to that, so people can actually action out that in their own cultures.
No, definitely. And I think being able to hear your model, learn a bit more of your model, and put an practical application into their own organization would be a great takeaway.
Yeah,
for attendees
and just to set the record straight too, like it's not my model, it's ThinkShift's model.
Yeah.
We and every ThinkShift client, I think will have heard about this model for sure.
No, great. No, thanks so much, Gord, for taking the time and joining us today. Any last comments, or maybe even a recommended resource that you could suggest to people if they want to take one step further, but just to dip their toe a little bit in it?
There's so much, and I wouldn't know where to start in terms of providing recommendations, but I think personally, when one of the things that we talk to our leadership teams of the importance of leaders need to cultivate vulnerability, and we spend a lot of time in our leadership development sessions talking about the notion of vulnerability, what it means to be truly vulnerable. And I think there's no better resource out there than Brene Brown, and just
agreed.
Like TED Talks around, like she's got so much good things to say about vulnerability, and there's way more dimensions to leadership than that one. But if I was to call out one, I would start there for sure.
No, that's fantastic. And thanks so much for sharing that resource and suggestion to others. And for anyone who is interested in still learning more about Gord and staying connected with him, I know LinkedIn, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. And hopefully he'll start sharing some of the other resources that he has through those methods. But yes, thank you, Gord, so much for your time. We look forward to seeing you on the 24th.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it. And yeah, I'm excited to talk on the 24th.
Great. Have a great day.
You too.
So for those that hopefully enjoyed you had a chance to enjoy the talking, it gave you some opportunities to kind of think about your own situation in your own organizations as you work on your leadership skills. And again, stay connected with Gord. We invite you to connect with him on LinkedIn. And if you're interested in joining us for Leadercast, visit www.lmva for more details. And we want to thank everyone here who was able to join us and those who are watching the stream afterwards. And I'd like to thank the team at Coffee Ring Marketing to helping us with this live. And for those who are interested in staying connected with us and these conversations, we invite you to join us. Our next one's going to be on Wednesday, September 15th, where I'm going to introduce you to David Falk, partner at Facilitated Solutions, president of ADR Institute of Manitoba, where we're going to talk about Conflict Resolution Day 2021. Thanks, everyone.